So good afternoon and welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Becoming a Thought Leader 2.0, Turning Ideas into Opportunities. I am Cass Bailey. I'm the CEO of Slice Communications, and I have two other amazing redheaded co-presenters today. Angela, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. My name is Angela Pointon. I'm the president of 11 out of 11, which is a content marketing agency. Super excited to be here with the group today and share some knowledge about really advancing what you can do from a thought leader perspective.
And Kristin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kristin Stricker. I'm the COO at Square 2 Marketing. We're a all digital marketing and sales agency. Nice to be here.
Yeah, okay. So we, Angela and I developed a little bit ago a webinar and a conversation about thought leadership and an intro to thought leadership. And we got really fantastic feedback on that. And I have some light now. We got some fantastic feedback on that and decided to work with Kristin on kind of talking about 2.0, how you take that thought leadership and turn it into opportunities. And that's what we're going to present to you all today. As Leo mentioned, we are going to send out a recording to everybody who has signed up. And we're also going to make sure that we are going to post a recap on the Slice blog, and I'm sure also the 11 out of 11 and the Square 2 blog and content as well. We want to make sure that we are answering and leaving lots of space for questions. So we ask that you use the Q&A function during the webinar today in the Zoom so that we can keep track of all the questions and answer as many of them as we can. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about the new buying cycle, the role of thought leadership throughout it, developing content, how you promote the content, and then using technology to automate the process. Angela and Kristin, anything else you want to add to the agenda or explain to the group before we get started?
Oh, looks awesome.
Good. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristin to talk about the new buying cycle.
All right. Thanks, Cass. So as we get started and before we get into the conversation about thought leadership and how to get thought leadership out there and really turn that into something that's going to ultimately generate revenue for your organization, we figured a great place to start would be taking a step back and looking at what the buyer journey looks like today. So if we go to the next slide, it is Square 2's perspective that the sales funnel has changed. The typical sales funnel that I'm sure everybody on this call is familiar with, that linear funnel, was actually developed sometime in the 1800s and has been used for a very long time, but our world has changed drastically since then. So Square 2 Marketing a couple years ago took a hard look at this and created how we feel the sales funnel has changed. And it's no longer a funnel. We refer to this image that you see here on the screen as the cyclonic buyer's journey. We call it the cyclonic buyer's journey for a number of different reasons. But one, as you'll see, there's each stage of the process going from marketing, sales, and services. And it can be viewed as individual cyclones. And our job in marketing and sales is to make sure that we are providing informative information in the right way at the right time to make sure that we are pulling people through the buying cycle and making sure that they're getting their questions answered in the right way to move on. So yes, as you'll see, there are a number of different phases from pre-awareness, awareness, all the way through to ultimate decision and how we deliver and how we interact with our client base. The other thing that should be noted is that it is, again, not the linear process that we found with the sales funnel. So we also need to be aware that people can enter at any point in this buying cycle. They can enter in awareness, they can enter into education, even right into consideration. So knowing that will help frame how we view content and promotion of that content and how we view strategies and how to reach and engage our audiences. If we can go to the next slide. A couple of things to also consider before we dive into talking about the content and thought leadership and pushing it out there. But in the context of the cyclonic buyer journey, Some key things that you should be asking yourself, just as foundational building blocks. Who is the buying group? So it is very rare these days that there is only one decision maker, one person that is going to be involved in the buying process, particularly, especially in the B2B sales. So understanding the different people that will be involved. Are they decision makers in the process? Are they influencers in the process? And then mapping out for these different people involved throughout the process, knowing their pains. What is going to be a pain point with them that is going to make them want to start looking for answers or a different approach? And then what are the questions? They are going to have questions, different questions throughout every stage of the buying cycle. Make sure that you spend time mapping out those questions and being very intentional in how you create content, how you create conversations to ensure that you are answering their questions throughout the buying cycle. And if we're doing this, then we're starting to really create trust and credibility and starting to really create a strong experience for those people going through your buying cycle. So with that and setting the stage, I'd like to hand this over to Cass, and she'll start to dive into thought leadership.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is the cycle and cyclone that we're going to go back to over and over again as we look at this conversation about turning ideas into opportunities. And so before we do that, though, we want to jump in and really define what is a thought leader. So there are three things that a thought leader must have to actually be a thought leader. The first one is that this person needs to have information that provides value or service. So sometimes that information comes through research. Sometimes it comes through experience. Sometimes it comes through thinking about and being thoughtful about issues that other people just aren't thinking about or being thoughtful about. But it is all about helping. Thought leaders are always helping. They're providing value by giving people different perspectives, different insights. They are providing service by giving away their ideas for free in a lot of cases, or giving expectations, or providing new and valuable information. So a thought leader always has that information and is always willing to share it. Number two is that for most thought leaders, it really is about helping people. It's about saying to people, I have this information, I have this perspective, it could help you in all of these ways. And they also share ideas that are relevant, meaning they really understand who their audience is. They focus on what that audience needs. Those ideas are insightful. That means that it adds something new to the conversation. It's something that maybe the audience hadn't understood before, hadn't thought about before, hadn't considered before. And then finally, great thought leaders produce information that is actionable and ideas that are actionable. So when somebody reads them or views them or listens to them or analyzes these ideas, they have an idea of what they need to do as a result, what behavior they need to change, what new ideas they need to consider, what conversations they need to have within their organization. So before we head into how to turn your thought leadership into business, you need to recognize, like, are you doing things that are really thought leadership? Or are you out there just communicating your company's marketing messages? Or are you just there to sell and for your own selfish interests? Because if anything of those things are true, you're unlikely to be a real thought leader that is respected in the market. So let's talk about where does the thought leader, the person who is the thought leader, where does that person fit in the cycle that Kristin shared? Well, the first one is awareness. A lot of times people will come in contact with a company or start to have awareness for a company because somebody has shared something that a thought leader within that company has developed. And so there is certainly a role for the thought leader to play. That first touch, that first impression, that first interaction, because the ideas that were shared were caught somebody's attention, and awareness always begins with attention. The second role that the thought leader fits in, and really the one that we consider the primary, is education. So the thought leader, when that person is doing their job incredibly well, they are making the client or the prospect understand the need for the service. They're helping them understand how they can get help and where they can get help. They're helping them understand a strategy that maybe they should be employing at their company. All of those things are education, and all of them are educational. And you can see how important that phase of the cycle is to the overall awareness and sales process. So education is what we believe is the primary thought leader responsibility in this cycle. The thought leader, though, also plays a role in consideration. So when a client or prospect is considering a number of different options, or whether or not they actually need to take advantage of the product or service that's being sold, the thought leader can have a big impact in that in terms of influencing that decision. And quite often, if there are companies that are selling equal services or equal products, but one of them has a thought leader, one of them has an authority, one of them has a strategist, one of them has somebody who's respected in the market, that organization will win. And they'll win because they have more to offer than just the product and service in the proposal. It is also, as I mentioned, the thought leader's role in some cases to convince through information, through knowledge, through data, through expertise, to convince the buyer that it is time to buy and that now is the time and that there is urgency for that. So the thought leader can play that role as well. And then finally, the rationalization is an area where the thought leader can play a role to reinforce the pain that the buyer is feeling, to reinforce the need for the product and service, to reinforce the need for new thinking, new strategy, new perspectives, and also to just add one more bit of value to the relationship through the thought leadership. And then the part that a lot of times that we forget as people who are involved in sales and marketing is the role the thought leader plays in delivery. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time up front educating our clients, making sure that they understand why they need our product and service, but then we stop there and they don't take advantage of our thought leader and of all of the information we have to share on an ongoing basis. But if we are continuing to educate throughout the delivery process, reinforce, add value through thought leadership, add value through data, add value through new insights and new perspective and new research, we can reinforce in the delivery stage the need to keep buying, and hopefully the value of also referring others either within the organization or in other organizations to our company and the products and services that we're selling. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angela, who's going to talk a little bit about how to start developing the content.
Great. So my job on today's webinar is to give you guys some things to sink your teeth into. You know, from a strategy perspective, hopefully everything that you've heard so far has made a lot of sense. And probably what you're wondering at this point is, okay, but what do I do to actually implement this? So if you go to the next slide, we took a stab at cascading some things around the buyer's journey. So Cass, I decided to challenge you today with some technical builds on this slide, despite the technical challenges that you might be experiencing. So bear with us, everybody. So on the marketing side of the Cyclone, we have a couple of elements. There's a million ideas we could think of, right, to help bring that thought leadership to your prospects so you can ultimately grow marketing and grow sales. But a few ideas that our firm has helped implement for clients are things like, you know, how many of you listening today at your organization have white papers or ebooks or other pieces of content that we call gated content or lead magnets, you might hear the term, where a user has to fill in a form in order to gain access to this piece of thought leadership, right? So it's something of higher value that your company has a perspective on, or you as a business owner has a perspective on, and you document it in a beautifully designed white paper or ebook and put it behind a form on your website. Another way to execute thought leadership in the marketing, still going down the right side of this slide, is an email nurture campaign. You know, you've got a list of anywhere from, say, some companies have 100 contacts on their prospect list, other companies have 100,000 prospects on their target list. How can we nurture those folks? How can we deliver thought leadership content in a series of email campaigns until ultimately they're part of one of these sales cyclones? And then we know it's really important to constantly be adding content to our company websites. The easiest way to do that is through a blog. Every blog post counts as a web page. Google cares about how big your website is. And so the more content we can add to the site on a rhythmic basis, the more favorable will be in Google's eyes, and the more people will ultimately find your company if those blog posts are crafted correctly. So those are just some marketing examples. On the sales side, what pieces of content can we do to help the sales team, right, as people are entering their sales cyclones? And an obvious example is case studies. Does anybody actually enjoy reading case studies? Not usually in the traditional sense. But if we author case studies and create the content around our own thought leadership, right? How did we solve this problem differently than the competition would have solved it? Suddenly that becomes more interesting to the reader. Nobody wants to just read a promotion for your company. People really want to read about how you approach things differently than other people. And the last, just a simple example around the services would be in that promoter score survey. Surely you've probably heard of that. It's just a simple question on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to refer our company to other people? And it's a way to garner how the services is performing in a very simple way. And it's a metric in which you can, it's easily quantifiable. It's obviously much simpler than some surveys that you may send as you already have existing customers to either upsell or promote further to them, but it's a good metric in order to gain feedback for you and your team. On the next slide, we'll talk about the importance of the content director. So there's a dozen more ideas that we could have put on the prior slide, but really the key to any of the ideas or implementing any of the ideas is making sure someone's in charge of them. We all know that we have the desire to put out content about how we do things differently than other people. I can tell you that that's something that 11 out of 11 strives to always do every month, but without somebody in charge of organizing that content, getting it created, getting it posted, published, executed, it's not going to happen. And so many of the people on the panel here, ourselves included, people hire out to us to implement this role on behalf of their company, and other companies have this role internally. It's all about what's best for you. But ultimately, the role is, the priority is planning the editorial calendar, making sure all the content gets created. Not only is it created, but is it just getting posted, or is it truly getting promoted so that more and more prospects are seeing it? And then, of course, it's always good to learn how the content performs. So on number 6, analyzing how the content is performing. If something is not resonating with your prospects or your clients, then we shouldn't continue creating content around that topic. But if stuff is really resonating and it's hot, we should do a series on that topic, for example, or maybe alter the post in a new way and break it out and promote it differently to gain more eyeballs on it. And so really, without somebody at the helm of all this, it's not going to get executed as well as it maybe could have. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about what a content plan looks like. So we use Asana on behalf of our clients. It is a project management tool. There's a lot of free features in the free level of Asana. It's A-S-A-N-A is how you spell it. So if you haven't already checked it out, or you're not already using a project management tool at your company, we highly recommend it. We love it. Within a content plan, you always want to be focused on what are you producing in the future months, right? What's the plan? What's the strategy, so that if there's a piece of content that needs to get executed in January, we're working on it now in October, right? If we want to produce something in January and we're starting on it January 1, that's probably a problem, right? We want to get ahead of this so that we're not only producing content, but we have the bandwidth to analyze the content that we produced previously and adjust future content ongoing. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how to make content creation even easier. So what we always suggest to clients is if something is difficult for you, as much as we'd love to say, go at it, really the right recommendation is don't do it. There's so many different formats of content that you can produce now. You should do what you really enjoy. A lot of people glom onto things like podcasts, or I want to have a YouTube channel that's really strong. Well, if producing podcasts and really getting ahead of it so that you're dripping out podcasts every week or every day is a challenge for you, don't start. Producing a podcast at a clip of once a month isn't enough. So if you're not going to be able to keep up with the pace, choose something that's easier. Same with video. You know, if the idea of a YouTube channel is attractive to you, but the idea of sitting behind the camera and producing video is a challenge, stop there. You know, the same could be said about writing or really any level of content creation. Do what is easy for you, because that's going to be the most successful way to make it systematic. Make sure you have at least 6 months of content planned out for all the reasons that I previously mentioned, and see what you can do about creating content in chunks. It's very difficult to have it on your schedule a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. It's much easier to just block out time and work on a bunch of different topics at once. And then I think the next slide is my last slide, which is about making sure you have room to test. Whenever you're producing content, you might feel really good about a thought leadership topic, only to find that it fell flat and didn't get the results that you wanted. It might not have been the topic was bad. Maybe a piece of the promotion didn't perform to your liking, or maybe the list that you sent it to wasn't strong enough. So there's different components that you need to be mindful of in order to give yourself room for testing, such as subject lines, actual publishing times, and when people are reading content or watching content, what format it's written in. And then the last part is really key. Are there partners that you could collaborate with to make the content even better and get the promotional reach even wider? Because if you can leverage partners, for example, how we're doing on this webinar today, you'll probably get a greater audience to share that content with right out of the gate.
Thanks, Angela. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about, again, where the thought leader fits and how to start turning the thought leadership ideas and the content that you're producing into business opportunities. Once you've created that content, right, we want to use it for awareness, we want to use it for education, we want to use it for consideration, we want to use it when it comes to rationalization, and we also want to use it for delivery. So right now, I'd like to do a little audience interaction, and I'd love for you guys to leave in the chat the thought leadership content that you're developing or that you have developed historically. Which one of these 5 has it been focused on? Has your thought leadership content to date been focused on awareness, education, consideration, rationalization, or delivery? So if you can, put it in the chat. We'd love to hear from everybody what it is that is working for you and what you've been doing to date. So we're seeing awareness is one of the ways that people are using thought leadership content so far. Who else? Some education and consideration, awareness and education, all of the above. Oh, that's great. But a lot of people are really focused on awareness and a little education. Okay, good. So now I want to take a little time to figure out how do you go from education and consideration. So awareness for sure and education keep popping up. But let's also go to consideration, because consideration is how we turn ideas into opportunities. So there are 3 primary models for how to do this, to move from education to consideration using thought leadership content. The first one is a model where you do it all. The second one is divide and conquer. And the third one is leveraging others, as Angela hinted to just a minute ago. Let's start with the do-it-all model. The do-it-all model is the situation where you are the thought leader. Your job is to put out the content. Your job is to provide the insights. Your job is to be the visionary, but your job is also to close business, to generate leads and close business. And that's our do-it-all model. In the do-it-all model, there's a very fine line to be walked. You want to make sure that you maintain your credibility as the thought leader, but you also do need to generate business. So in the do-it-all model, what we recommend is starting to think about and starting to incorporate in some messaging that's related to here's what we believe, and by the way, like, here's how we can help you out with it. And so by asking the help question, that is one that a do-it-all approach and a do-it-all model really exists on. So let's do a quick example. Let's say that you have written an ebook, and that's great. And you are the author of the ebook, you've done the work, you've written a number of blogs around it, you've done a webinar on it, and that's wonderful. And you share it on your LinkedIn, you put it out on Twitter, you share it on Facebook, you're sending out emails about all this content that you're doing. Now, as you do that, you'll start to identify and see that there are people who are interacting with it a lot. And maybe some of those people are really the best people for you to do work with. They're the ones that Kristin mentioned are your target audience. We recommend in these situations to ask a very simple human question, which is to reach out to those folks and say, hey, we noticed that you seem to be really interested in this. Are you open to a conversation about how we might be able to help you with it? And one of two things will happen. People will say no, or not right now. They won't respond, or they'll say yes. When you ask a question like that in that sort of way that toes that fine line very sensitively, nobody's going to get mad at you. Nobody's going to say, no, what are you talking about? Or you're annoying, or never contact me again. That's just not going to happen, because there's something about what you've provided to them that has been helpful to them. So if you are a do-it-aller, please leave a message in the chat right now. We want to see how many do-it-allers we have, people who are responsible for being the thought leaders and also for making the ask. And like we said, we recommend using one-to-one communication, and we recommend making that ask in a way that's about, hey, is now a good time for us to talk about how we can help you? The second model is the divide and conquer model. And this is the model where the thought leader is different than the sales team, and sometimes also different than the marketing team. And in this sort of situation, the interaction and the promotion actually works quite differently. The thought leader is responsible for developing the content and putting it out to their networks and putting it out to others. In this sort of situation, you need to really invest in your individual social media presence. How many connections do you have on LinkedIn? How many followers do you have on Twitter? What do you have available online that could say to an organization or an association that you would be a great speaker? Then you also need to have a conversation with sales to say, hey, sales, I'm putting out this content. Here are some ways that you can use it. You can send it to your prospects. You can send it to your current accounts. You can let them know that I'm open to a conversation with them. You can invite them to be part of future thought leadership content. You can ask them for feedback. Ask them for what other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. And then marketing's job in that sort of situation is really to create an overall umbrella of awareness for the content on behalf of the company, while also reinforcing the key sales messages, the benefits of the product and service. And so they are the ones in that role that will take the thought leadership content, connect it to their sales and marketing messages, and then also potentially provide the materials to support sales. In that sort of model, you have an opportunity to create a whole lot of brand awareness, and then each person is responsible for their part. The thought leader develops the content, marketing promotes the content, and sales turns the content into conversations about new business. But all of those three things, if you recall, are focused on the content. A lot of times the mistakes that we see in this model is that sales never talks to the thought leader, or the thought leader sales never talks to marketing and the thought leader. And therefore they're out doing their own thing and not leveraging all of the value that the thought leader is providing. The third model, and the one that we see most often is overlooked, is the leveraging other model. There are two different ways to do this. As Angela said, there's the opportunity to co-develop content, a white paper, an ebook, a webinar, etc., and to leverage all parties, marketing, networks, and communications tactics. But there's also a model that is really focused on centers of influence. And this is the one that we see people often overlook because they're so focused on marketing and getting their content in front of their targeted customers that they forget all of those people who can help them in a way that's much more trustworthy and effective get in front of their customers. So in this sort of situation, whether you are the thought leader or if you're a marketing person supporting the thought leader, you want to create a list of people who are most likely to refer you business or could refer you business or have referred you business. The marketing, communications, and promotion you do to them is very different than what you do to your end audience, in part because what you're asking them for is something very different. So you can say to these centers of influence, listen, we did this piece. We heard from people that it's really resonating with them. Is there anybody in your network that you think you could share it with? Another conversation would go something along the lines of, hey, we did this piece. We'd really like to get your feedback on it before we put it out. And if you think it's great and wouldn't mind sharing it with your networks, that we would really, really appreciate it. And we'd love to, partner with you in that way. A lot of organizations that we've talked to over the years tell us that they get most of their business through word of mouth. Word of mouth, though, has changed because now we're all required to do word of mouth marketing online and leverage our influencers to get people to connect us with new and different audiences. And thought leadership can play a critical role in that because it is something that is valuable. So if you give your centers of influence and those people who refer you work something valuable that they can share with their networks, you're more likely to get new opportunities, new connections, and possibly also new sales with people you didn't even know that you don't know. So if you are a do-it-aller, put it in the chat. Thank you for doing that. If you're a divide and conqueror, put that in the chat. And if you are in a situation where you think your biggest opportunity is going to come from leveraging others, put that in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from all of you in terms of what your model is, and then also what you've seen work and not work with all three of these models. With that, I am going to turn it back over to Kristin.
All right, thanks, Cass. So now that we've gone through how to create content, how to get that thought leadership out there and the different ways that that can be done, let's talk about leveraging technology and getting some automation and actually gaining efficiencies and then connecting thought leadership back to actual growth in business and attributing that to some increase in revenue. So first and foremost, it's very important to create a process. So sit down, create your strategy, think through your processes, and make sure you're intentional. So going back to the Cyclonic buyer journey, there are a couple things that you need to be looking at. First, nurture strategies. Look at the buyer's journey. As you start to engage and connect with people and convert people throughout the different stages of the buyer's journey, note where they're at in that buyer journey. What was the question that you were answering? And then build out a nurture strategy to make sure that there is consistent follow-up after they've initially engaged with information that is going to be the next question on their list. Also the nurture strategies, you should also be thinking about this from not only marketing and sales perspective, but your services, your current client base. Create nurture strategies for your client base. If you're a technology or software service, make sure that user adoption is up, automate that, make sure that people are using it. If you have a business, there are many different divisions and opportunities for cross-sell. Make sure that you are being intentional with how you can nurture people within the business divisions and make sure that you're creating awareness of the other types of services that you can be offering to them. Take a look at lead life cycles and lead management. So sit down and define what is the definition of a marketing qualified lead? What is the definition of a sales accepted lead, sales qualified lead? Establish the process that these leads should go through as they go through marketing, sales, and services. You want to be very consistent in the experience that you're providing to people in the buyer journey and all the way through how you provide services to your clients and customers. So make sure that that's being mapped out, it's being defined, it's explicitly stated, and that people are very aware of those processes. The lead management strategies that you should be putting in place. There should be a seamless handoff from marketing to sales. Sales should know exactly when it is their turn to pick up a lead, and it's their time to really start to actively engage with them. And then they should have a process after they do initial engagement, taking them through the rest of the sales process. So once you've defined these processes and establishing the strategies around them is when you should be looking at technology. So on the next slide, a couple of notes on evaluating technology. First and foremost, we always say strategy process first. Figure out what is right for your business, what you need to do to reach your target audience, what you need to do to automate that to make it an efficient and effective priority. And then take a look at technology. Then understand how can technology help you leverage, automate these processes so that it's more efficient for you. It's not feasible to think that you would be doing manual nurtures for everybody in the marketing process, sales and or services. So making sure that you integrate that technology in the right places is imperative to really turning all of this thought leadership and great content into a revenue generator for you. And then, automate all of these things. So everything that I just discussed should be automated within the technology. If any of you don't already have a marketing automation technology, both Angela at 11 out of 11 and Square 2 Marketing, we are HubSpot partner agencies. We leverage HubSpot quite frequently for our clients in terms of going towards a platform that is very comprehensive, that will allow you to seamlessly align sales through CRM, marketing through marketing automation, even your services. It's all there, and a very easy platform to use in terms of user adoption. User adoption is key, right? And going back to the fact that technology should be making your job easier, not more difficult. Just evaluate the different technologies. And then there's just a slew of other technologies, as I'm sure many are aware, to do many other things. So it's evaluating again, based on what you need to accomplish within your process, what are the right pieces of technology that you need to integrate and use to make sure that you're automating. And then finally, once you have all of these things in place, these processes, and you have the technology established, you will have then transparency, the ability to have transparency into your metrics. So pushing that thought leadership out there and then starting to understand how that thought leadership and that content and that effort that you're putting into PR, into marketing, into sales, will be able to bring results. So this is just a simple graph to show you how you can start thinking about this. I highly recommend you map out what your current state is. Take a look at what you're getting in terms of website visitors, and then going through the process: awareness, education, consideration, evaluation, rationalization, and decision, and put where you are in terms of conversions at each one of those points. And so in this example here on the top one, you can see that we're really not getting a lot of traction with the efforts. Like, we're not actually getting any new customers from our marketing initiatives. Then this is where you should also be connecting it back to your business goals and objectives that you've established. And what do you need to accomplish from marketing to realize the right return on investment, and or just to realize the goals that have been put in place for your organization. And if that ends up being, I need 6 new customers per month to be closing eventually, then map out what that is going to look like. So now we at least have a view of the end goal. So in this instance, if we had 3,000 website visitors per month and we had a 1% site-wide conversion rate, and you see all of the conversion rates here on the screen, but this gives you a sense of the amount of work that you're going to have to put into it, the amount of promotion that you're going to have to do. And then this also allows you a map in terms of where you can pull levers. Where is your opportunity to start to tip your performance up and to the right? Do you start with website visitors? Do you need to gain more volume before you can even increase your conversions? Are you starting at a place where you actually already have a lot of volume? You're just not getting the right conversions. And that's where you can decide to really pinpoint and focus your efforts in a very prioritized, efficient and effective way. So really taking the time again to map these metrics and then making sure that you're pulling this out of the technology and through all the automated processes you've established is key. So this is our last point in talking about how you can bring all that thought leadership and that content and bring that around to actual business results for organizations. And so now I believe we'd like to open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to remind everybody that we are using the question and answer function for this portion of our conversation. We have about 13 minutes to try to answer as many questions as we can. So please put your questions in there, not in the chat, that we'll make sure we get to all of them. And so our first question is, have there been any HR-focused buyer studies on the areas of thought leadership they most value due to the pandemic, such as worker safety, how to promote culture while work from home, and the importance of benefits communication? There's a lot of noise in those areas, and I'm looking for tips on how to break through with thought leadership. Specifically, I'm focused on the importance of promoting whole person health, financial, physical, and mental. Great content today, and thanks for these important suggestions. I look forward to acting on them. Angela, I know that is a question that you'd like to address.
Yeah, hey Kevin, thanks for the question, and for the rest of the group listening, hopefully this is helpful to you too. So I think there's a number of ways you could potentially tackle this at a tactical level. If you're not sure what's going to break through the noise, there's really two ways to go about it. One is just to test a whole bunch of stuff. We're big fans of micro tests. So if you engage in social media, posting different topics and seeing what the engagement is with topics is a lot easier than drafting entire ebooks or blogs on a variety of topics initially, right? So maybe doing some micro tests just to see what people are most engaged with on social media with a variety of different posts. And then obviously the post that's getting the most engagement, whether it's likes, shares, comments, you produce more thought leadership content around in longer pieces. Another way to go about it is to simply ask your audience. So putting together a survey about poignant questions related to whole person health, whatever those questions are, you guys are the experts. I'm sure you could come up with them. Getting that information from the audience and then developing content as it relates to how people responded. And then I suppose there is a third way, which is, Kevin, I know you're in sales personally, but really asking the other sales team members that you work with, what are they hearing? If they're engaged with prospects and clients on a regular basis, that's really a key to getting good content ideas, is to get the sales team to funnel those ideas to marketing, right? And if you're sharing the sales and marketing hat, to just really be aware that you're listening not only to help a prospect, but if you hear a prospect ask a question, it's usually, not just them, multiple people have that question. So it's a good fodder for content creation too.
Yeah, and if I could add, we've seen some people break through with issues because their tone is different than anybody else's tone. They're more frank, or they're more honest, or they are funnier about it than other people are. So think about that. We've seen some people break through with their content because they use a different media. Where everybody else is doing writing, they're doing video, or where everybody else is doing video, they're doing graphics or webinars or quizzes or something like that. And then the third thing is that we've seen people really break through when they invest. They put money into Facebook or LinkedIn advertising to really, really push and get as many brand impressions as they possibly can. So those are also some ways to start to break through. Kristin, anything you want to add?
No, not right now. You guys covered it well.
We have a question. We have been using HubSpot a lot. However, wanted to understand the best practice for the following. I don't see the following. Dinesh, oh, here we go. 1, ideal sales stages for a pipeline. 2, ideal sales dashboards and metrics, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. Kristin, do you want to take that one? What's best practice for ideal sales stages for a pipeline and ideal sales pipelines and metrics?
I think, the pipeline, ideal stages for a pipeline is really highly dependent on, what your sales process looks like. But from a high level, you want to make sure that you have a stage that you're pre-qualifying, right? Then qualified, and then going into basically a diagnostic and or consideration phase where you make the recommendations and then closed. I think I just lost the second part of that question. 1 second.
I think it's about sales dashboard.
Sales dashboards and metrics to track weekly. Again, dependent on the type of business that you have, but and dependent on the goals of your organization. But you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the number of leads coming through. You want to have an understanding of how many of those leads are turning into sales qualified. And you want to have an understanding of how many of those sales qualified leads are turning into closed sales. So that's from a very high level. There's probably going to be nuance there to the different things that you're going to want to track as well. But that will give you a pretty good sense. And as you start to measure and look at week over week, month over month, you'll start to establish these baselines, and it will give you more insight and knowledge in terms of where you need to start tweaking your process.
Angela, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think, Kristin, you covered the basics. The only other thing that I might suggest is time during the pipeline. So length of deal during your current pipeline. And there's no right or wrong answer there. Everybody's pipeline length is different. Some people have quick sales processes and close quickly, and other people it's a year to close a deal. Really, why you measure that is so that you can dig deeper, because if there are opportunities through content creation to escalate the time which a prospect is going through the sales pipeline, then those are pieces of content that are going to become a priority for you so that you can close deals faster. And we can't know what that is unless we're measuring it.
Yeah, and that's, a really great point too. That's one of the main purposes of the Cyclonic buyer journey, making sure that you have content throughout, is so that you can tighten and reduce the amount of time that you're in the sales process, because you've already established that trust and credibility throughout early on in the process. So it's going to take them less time to make those decisions.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask one more question before we wrap up, just of our group here. Kristin, Angela, you guys are both thought leaders in what it is that you do, and you've turned that thought leadership into opportunities and into business. Do you have a little bit of secret sauce or one tip that you think everybody on the webinar can employ headed into next year?
Kristin, do you want to go first?
Oh boy. I guess one, be true in terms of thought leadership and establishing your place in the industry. Be true to yourself. Be what you are. Don't try to manufacture something that's not an organic extension of what you've established as a business. And then take that information and figure out what is truly unique and is going to be very hard for somebody to replicate or another organization to replicate. And I'm going to tell you now, it's not, we have great people or we've been in the industry for 50 years. Those aren't things, those are things that people can easily say. So really work hard at understanding what is at your core that makes you such a wonderful organization, and bring that out in a way that's going to resonate with your audience, in a way that's going to connect with the pains and the solutions that they're looking for.
Angela?
Yeah, I'll just add that I'm going to take a guess that everybody in this audience is forward thinking, wants to do better, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so that's really exciting for me. We rarely anymore, but occasionally it crops up where we have a call with somebody who bemoans COVID, really wants things to be back how they were. And what I would say to everyone in this group, I'm sure you're already thinking this way, but just in case, there are so many opportunities to engage with people that others didn't leverage, before we were in this situation, whether it be webinars or, you know what, I am going to shoot that video series, or I am going to start my podcast, now's the time. You know, it's a opportunity to try something new and do something different. I'm super surprised I didn't have a kid walking in the background because it's like lunch hour here. Somehow that magically worked out today. But to Kristin's point, everybody's super real right now. You know, forget about trying to overproduce. The pressure's off. We are all more real and more connected in a weird, non-human, you know, we're doing it digitally than we ever have been before. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, one of the things that I think that thought leaders in particular have a really hard time doing is making the ask, right? To say, I did this content, I think it's going to be helpful to you. Is it actually going to be helpful to you? Can I help you in new and different ways? Or do you know somebody who I can help in new and different ways? Because I'm doing everything I can to make sure that my business is sustainable, that it makes it through this, and that I can continue to professionally provide this thought leadership, this insight, this guidance, and this advice. And I think sometimes we get hesitant about making the ask, and we want to help each other out. We want to get through this together. We want to know how we can support each other, because we want to make sure that we're all here for many, many years to come. And that said, Kristin and Angela, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your insight and being such great partners and such great collaborators. I really appreciate you both. Thank you.